Today's complex world has been built on extremely simple inventions that are normally hidden to our eyes, but are present in most of the things we're using or our lives depend on. If we removed any of them, our world as we know it would be a very different place. Today's invention that changed the world is bearings. Nature will always tend to reduce the energy consumed and be more efficient. Bearings will do that by reducing the friction between two parts. Imagine a wheel and the shaft it is spinning on. If the shaft was mounted inside the wheel, without any lubrication at all, then it would get worn out quickly because of the friction. But if we introduce a ball bearing, the wheel is going to spin freely while the shaft is going to stay in place, and the friction would be taken over by the balls between the two parts of the bearing, which additionally would provide very low resistance to motion, thus less wear. Most probably, the device that comes to your mind when saying bearing is the rolling element bearing, made of spherical balls or cylindrical rollers. But bearings come in many other shapes and sizes, and the basic principle brings the idea of bearing way back in humanity's history, most probably before the invention of the wheel. The term bearing is derived from the verb to bear, a bearing being a machine element that allows one part to bear or to support another. A sledge, for example, is a bearing, a plain bearing. It is ensuring that the journal, the sledge, is moving as desired, forward, compared to the surface of the bearing, ground, while the lubrication is ensured by ice or snow. Bearings can be built to support two types of load, radial and thrust. A radial load puts weight on the bearing in a manner that causes the bearing to roll or rotate, like in a wheel. A thrust load puts weight on a bearing on its side, like in a revolving chair. You are sitting on the bearing. There are different types of bearings. Plain bearing, the most simple bearing consisting of a shaft rotating in a hole with the help of a lubricant around. Ball bearings. The rolling elements are spherical balls. These are the most common and they can handle both radial and thrust loads. Roller bearings, designed to carry heavy load. The roller is a cylinder, which means the load is distributed onto a larger area, not capable of supporting thrust loads. Jewel bearing, a plain bearing in which one of the bearing surfaces is made of an ultra-hard, glassy jewel material such as sapphire to reduce friction and wear. Fluid bearing, a non-contact bearing in which the load is supported by a gas or liquid. Magnetic bearing, in which the load is supported by a magnetic field. Enough with the theory, now let's get to practice. The plain bearing was the one that got a significant role in the ancient Egypt. The Egyptians used plain bearings in the form of a wooden plate to carry heavy things around while lubricating the sand with water. I'm sure I heard about that one before. Oh yes, that's how the blocks of stone were moved in order to build the pyramids. So, no bearings, no pyramids. Deal with it. No matter if radial load, thrust load, or both, ball bearings are used nowadays in many applications all around the world. Hard drives wouldn't have been possible without them. But most probably computers would still have been developed and, instead of hard drives, we would have had access to flash disks earlier than we had, but that would have made them extremely expensive and unaffordable for mass use, at least for the beginning. During World War II, bearings factories were so crucial in the war industry for Germany that the enemies were targeting them. Without ball bearings, airplane motors, tanks, automobiles, guns, submarine engines could not be built. Maybe the lack of this small and simple device would have changed the world's fate, leading to less destroyed cities and less casualties. but war always finds a way. Jet engines in modern aircraft, commercial or military, use ball bearings. Without them, flight at high speeds would not have been possible. Jet engines' bearings can operate at over 200 degrees Celsius and at speeds over 10,000 RPM for the turbine shafts to over 30,000 RPM in the accessory drives. Can you imagine flying from London to New York in 15 hours instead of 8? Actually, anywhere else, flight would take twice as long. Skateboards, rollerblades, yo-yos, and the toy of the 2017, the fidget spinner, would simply not be possible without ball bearings. A fidget spinner can achieve high speeds because it is rotating on a bearing. Let me give you a tip. If you want to achieve higher speeds on your fidget spinner, then you must choose one which is spinning on a bearing, in a bearing, in a bearing. This leads to less friction, so most of the power used to give it that initial push will be transferred to the rotational motion. I don't know about you, but I can't live without a fidget spinner. I can't work without a fidget spinner. Oh my god, my channel wouldn't be possible without the ball bearings. Neither drills, Tesla cars, wind turbines, your home blender, vacuum cleaners, surgical devices, dental drills, spinning chairs, or basically any other electrical powered device would. Roller bearings are used in every car's wheels and gearboxes. Your daily drive wouldn't be possible or would be limited to lower speeds and most probably a horse. Jewel bearings are found in watches. Yes, they do have jewels inside, not only outside. A jewel like a sapphire is used in the watch because it is very resistant and slippery enough to cope with the sensitive high-precision components. Every time you want to know what the time is, remember that a bearing behind your mechanical hand watch tells you when you're late. Fluid bearings might not be that popular, but they got some practical applicability. Can you think about a very popular fluid bearing that you used to have fun? Need a clue? Hockey, but not on ice. That's right, air hockey. An aerostatic bearing, which is actually a cushion of air, suspends the puck and player's paddles and provides low friction and thus sustains high puck speeds. Wait, isn't that just a simple cushion of air? How is this a bearing? Well, that's because it is made out of three basic elements that every bearing must have: the journal, the puck, the table, the bearing surface, and the lubricant, the air. The world would be less fun without bearings. Magnetic levitation bearings are used in extremely complex scientific environments like uranium enrichment. So, no nuclear power without them. But this would change the world to a better one, because without these bearings the Chernobyl would have never happened, or Fukushima wouldn't have been able to operate. Can you guess another cool sci-fi mean of transport that would use magnetic bearings? I'll give you a clue. From San Francisco to LA in 30 minutes. Yep, it's the hyperloop. The trains are supposed to run on magnetic bearings and actually float above the track, leading to no friction other than air. The maglev trains exist in the present day, but they are not that fast due to air friction. Hyperloop would travel through a tube with a very low air density, thus reducing friction. And here we are at the end. But the main question remains. Would you be ready to bear a world without bearings? We would have never moved further than cave and hunting. We wouldn't have been able to build anything, have fun, shrink the distances between us, take advantage of cheaper electricity, or revolutionize the future. Bearings had also a dark, negative impact over the world by ending millions of lives. But as always, it is not the invention but the way humans use it to create or destroy things around them. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay curious.